when we press G, we get this gamma correction settings menu, and we can adjust this value to be higher and also lower. Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and in today's video, we will be creating a gamma correction settings menu. So with that said, let's begin. To start things off, we want to grab an image or a texture to represent our gamma correction icon. So with that, let's go to our content drawer, and over here I have already created a materials folder inside which we have a texture folder. And here we have our gamma icon, which looks like the sun. So with that, let's go to our content drawer again. Let's right click and go to create a material. With this, we'll call it M for material underscore gamma contrast. And let's save it and open it. Once inside, we want to click on this material, go to the left-hand side where you see material domain, on surface, change it to user interface, and blend mode from opaque to translucent. Next, we can either right-click and do texture sample and fill it out here, or we can simply drag it in. So once we have our texture sample here, gamma icon, we want to then press M on the keyboard to get a multiply node, and 1 get this sort of value. Let's right-click and do convert to a parameter. For this parameter, we can call it the alpha multiplier, if that's spelled correctly. And with that, then we'll set this value to be 1. Oops, 1. And this plugs into B, and the alpha channel on the texture plugs into A. With that, we can then set this to the final color and the opacity, and we get something like that. So let's apply and save. Next, we want to go ahead and create 3 material instances for the not visible, barely visible, and clearly visible. With that, let's right click on our material and go to create material instance. Let's call it MI for material instance underscore gamma contrast underscore not visible. And with that, let's open it up. And if we go to the global scalar parameter values, we have our parameter we set up. So with the not visible, I like to set it to 0.08, and it'll look something like this. Save and exit. Let's create 2 more. Let's right click on the material instance, not the material, and do a duplicate. And change not visible to barely visible. Let's open that up and change the alpha multiplier this time to 0.16, like so. Save and exit. And once again, let's duplicate it and change the name to clearly visible. Now this time, the value we want to be 0.5, and let's save and exit. Next, let's go to our content drawer once again, and let's go to the third person, input, actions, and let's create a new input action to open up our menu. IA for input action underscore toggle menu. Let's save it, go back a folder to our IMC underscore default, open this up, go to the mappings, create a new mapping, and we'll select toggle menu and select a key of your choice. For me, I like to go with G. And let's save. Next on the list is to create a widget. So let's right click and go to a new folder. Let's call it UI. Open it up, and in here, go to user interface, widget blueprint, and let's create a widget called WB underscore gamma menu. Let's save it. Next, let's go ahead and create a controller for our player. So back to the content, third person, blueprints. Let's right click, go to blueprint class, select your player controller, call it BP for blueprint underscore PC player controller underscore main. With this created, we want to first assign it to our player character. So on the right hand side, we see world settings. Now, if you don't, go to settings and click world settings. Go down to the game mode. We can see our third person character, and we are interested in the player controller class. So let's change it from this to our own. With that set up, let's open up our controller. let's go to the event graph. And over here, we want to create a new function called toggle settings menu. And in this function, we want to drag out from the execution pin and do create widget, which of course is going to be our gamma menu, which we made. Let's promote it to a variable called wb_gamma menu. And we'll then add it to the viewport to display on our screen. Now, before we do this, we want to grab our variable we just made and do a convert to a validated get. Now we want to check if this already exists or not, because if we created it, it's going to have a value, but if it doesn't exist, it won't have a value. So if it does not exist, we want to create it. But if it does, we want to remove it from the parent, so it'll remove it from screen. Remove from parent. And once we do, we also want to clear our variable so that it is equal to nothing. So we'll set to be empty, like so. Next, we also want our mouse to be displayed on our screen when we have the menu up and be hidden when we have the menu down. So on the functions left-hand side, we'll create two new functions called show mouse and another one called hide mouse. Let's open up the show mouse and we'll do right click, get player controller, then do a set show mouse cursor, take this on so the mouse shows up. And we'll set the game mode. So set input game and UI. And game and UI will allow you to navigate the UI and of course move around in the game as well. Double click to align, select everything, press Q. Let's go to the hide mouse and fairly similar. We'll do get player controller. And we want to do a is valid check because once we close the game, the player controller doesn't exist and this will give us an error. So to avoid that, we do a is valid. Next, we'll do a set show mouse cursor. Make this false to hide the mouse. And lastly, we set the game mode. So we'll do set input game only. Plug it in and we can align everything for clean code. Let's compile and save. Now let's head back to our toggle settings function. And when we create the widget, we want to show the mouse. And vice versa, when we hide it, we want to hide the mouse as well. Now the last thing left to do is to call our toggle settings menu function. So let's go to the event graph and inside here, we want to right click and search for IA_toggle menu or whichever you called it. Click on your dropdown and on started, we want to call the toggle settings menu function, plug it in and let's compile and save. Now make sure your controller is also set up in here on the right hand side. And once it is, hit play to test. When we press G, mouse should show up. And when we press G again, it should be hidden. Next, we'll go ahead and set up the save system to keep track of our gamma throughout opening and closing the game. So with that, let's go to the content drawer, go to content, right click to create a new folder. Let's save system and let's open this up. Inside, let's right click and go to blueprint class and let's search for all classes, save game, click on that and do select. We'll call it SGB for save game blueprint _ settings. Save and open. Inside here on the left hand side, go to variables, create a new variable, call it your gamma value, change it from a boolean to a float. If you compile, we can set a default gamma value. Now, for most cases, the default gamma is going to be 2.2. So that's what I'll do and compile and save. Next, let's go ahead and create a game instance. Now we're using a game instance because everything saved in it is going to be persistent. So let's go to the blueprint class and all classes, search for game instance. Click on it and do select. We'll call it BP for blueprint _ GI game instance _ main. Now, once created, we first want to assign it so that we don't forget later. So go to your settings on the top right, project settings, and in maps and modes, the very last setting should be game instance class. Change it from the default to your own. Once that's done, let's open up our game instance. And over here, we want to create a new function called, so let's do custom event, and we'll call it load game. When we are loading the game, we want to do a does save game exist. Now for the save game, we can drag this out, promote it to a variable, call it your settings slot, like so. Let's compile to assign a default value. I'll just call it slot 1 and hit enter. Next, let's grab a branch to check if that's true or false. If it's false, we want to create. So create a save game object. Now in here, find your save game. So sgb_settings in my case. Once that's done, we want to promote this to a variable. So sgb_settings. Like so. If it's true, we then want to do a load game from slot, like so. Your slot name goes in here, so drag this variable, plug it in. Next, we want to cast to our sgb_settings, and once again, just promote it to a variable. So I'll Control-C, Control-V, paste it here, and let's just do a print string. This will be printed once we load the game to say load for testing purposes. Next, after creating the save game object, we want to drag out from this blue pin from the variable and do a get gamma value. Next, we'll do a right click to get a format text node, and inside we want a small r dot capital T for tone, mapper and capital G for gamma, space, curly brackets, X, and close curly brackets. And the X is for our gamma value to go in. Oops, like so. After that, we want to right click to execute console command. The player in question will be get player controller, goes in here, and the result goes in the command, and it should convert it for you. Connect it there, select everything, press Q to align it, and we'll bring this down, and there we go. Next, let's call the event initialize. So let's right click to event init. And at the very start, we want to load the game. So we can call this function, this event, drag it in here, and all of this will be executed at the start of the game. Let's compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and create another custom event, and we'll call it save settings. With that, we want to do a save game to slot, drag your save game object in here, your setting slot variable into there, and we'll do a branch to check if it's true or false. And untrue, we want to grab our sgb_settings variable and do set gamma value, like so. Drag this green pin into your custom event to create an input and double click to make it nice and pretty. And at the very end, just for good measure, we can go ahead and call a print string to let us know that this has been updated. And let's call it settings saved. Compile and save. Next, let's go ahead and create a function called load settings. In here, we want to drag our SGB settings to a get, right click, convert to validate get. We want to do a print string just to test, do settings loaded is valid. And at the very end, we'll do a return node, and we want to return the gamma. So drag out from the blue pin, do get gamma value, and plug it into your return. And let's compile and save. Next, let's go ahead and create the design for our gamma settings menu. So let's open up the content drawer, go to UI, and open up our widget. We'll start by getting a canvas panel into all of this, followed by a border. So let's go drag that in here. Click on your border, go to the right-hand side to anchors, and while holding Control and Shift, click any of these and it will snap. For X, I'll do 800, and for Y, I'll do 400. For the brush color, down here, we can do like a light gray, something like that. Press OK. Now this border will be followed by a vertical box because we will align the images, the text, and all that vertically. Click on it and set the padding to 0. Then we want another border in our vertical box, and this will house our images. But before we do, we need to grab a horizontal box to stack them horizontally. So drag this into your border. Padding will do 0 once again. Now we don't really see this clearly, so click on your border. We'll do a fill for now. And the fill will do 3. For the brush color, something darker like that. Drag it in to save, and we can also give this a padding of, like, let's say 20. Now inside here, we want to drag 3 images. So search for image, drag it into your horizontal box, Control C, Control V for 3 images. Select all of them, do a fill, padding of 20 should do. And we want to name them. So our first one was called img underscore not visible. Next one is called img underscore barely visible. And the last one is going to be called img underscore clearly visible. And we want to now get a material inside each of these. So click on your brush, go to image, and do gamma contrast, and we'll do clearly visible. Then we'll do barely visible. And don't worry that it's stretched for now. We'll fix it in a moment. And we'll do not visible. Like so. Perfect. On top of this, we want a text. So drag your text into the vertical box, and you can either have it at the top or at the bottom. Your preference, size will do 14 on the font. And we'll say adjust the brightness setting for your display until the image to the left is not visible. And we can center that. And next, we'll go ahead and do another border at the very bottom. So drag this to your vertical box. And this will house both the text and the slider. So once again, to stack these horizontally, we need a horizontal box. Let's click on this border and let's see. We'll do a fill of 0.5, a padding of 20. And the brush color, we have one saved here. That's looking nice. Okay. And we want this horizontal box to be 0 on the padding. Next, let's go ahead and add a text. Drag this to your horizontal box. For the font, we'll do 14. We'll say gamma. And we'll do, let's say, vertical alignment, center, like so. And we'll do padding 20 and 0. Next, let's grab a slider and show it into our horizontal box. We'll do a fill. Let's do padding 20. 20 and 0. And for the value, we'll do 2.2. Now this should get overridden anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The minimum value does, so we'll do 0.5. And the maximum value will do 3. And the end results should look something like that. We should also click on the slider and give it a proper name, gamma. And I think we're ready. So let's compile and save. Next, let's head over to the event graph, and over here we'll create a new function called setSlider, and we'll hard code some of these values. So let's grab our slider, do setMaxValue. And we want this to be 3. We'll drag this again and do setMinValue to be 0.5, like so. And lastly, we'll do setStepSize if you're using a keyboard. This will be handy. And we'll do 0.1. And let's compile and save. Next, we want to go ahead and normalize the value from 0.5 to 3 to a value of 0 to 1. So we'll create a function to do so, call it normalized value or normalized slider. And let's grab a sequence. So press S and left mouse on your keyboards. Next, we'll grab our slider and do get value. And we'll subtract this from the minimum value. So get min value, connect it, select everything, press Q just to align it. And we'll promote this to a local variable. So local underscore A. That will do. And let's grab this again. Do get max value this time. Subtracted again the minimum value. Select everything, press Q, and promote this to another local value underscore B. Like so. And then on sequence 1, what we'll do is we'll do a return, and we want to return the value A being divided by value B. And the result is what we want. So connect that there, and we're golden. Compile and save. Next, let's go ahead and create another function called update image tint. Now over here, we want to grab our normalized node function. And we want to grab all of the images. So not visible, barely visible, and clearly visible. And we want to do a set brush tint color. Connect all of them there. We can select all of these, right click, then go to alignment left. And we'll do make from the tint color, make slate color. And for the specified color, we can do make color. And then connect this to RGB and the opacity. And this goes to the execution there. And there we have it. Let's compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and create a function called load gamma. So we'll get the game instance. We have to cast to our game instance, so whatever we called it, pp underscore gi underscore main in my case. And now we have access to all the good stuff. So from here, we can do load settings. So we get that value. We can get our slider, and we can do set value to whatever the gamma value is, like so, and we can update the image tint. And let's compile and save. Next, we'll create a function to save our gamma. So we'll do save gamma, and here we want to once again do get game instance, cast to our game instance. And we'll do save settings. For that, we need to grab the slider, get the current value, and plug it into there. And again, just update the image tint. And compile and save. In the event graph on preconstruct, we want to go ahead and set our slider, and then we want to load whatever our gamma is. And lastly, let's click on our slider and do on value changed. So whenever we change the value, I want it to save. So like we did in our save system, we'll do format text, do or dot tone, capital T, mapper, capital G for gamma, underscore or space, curly brackets, X, close curly brackets, and the X is for the value there. Then we'll do execute console command, result goes to command, we'll convert, and specific player, once again, we'll do get the player controller. And we'll do that. And at the very end, we want to save that. So we'll do save gamma. And there we go. Let's compile and save. So one last thing to do is to test everything. So let's close it down, play. We can see our screen is pretty bright. We press G and we can slide this down, updates, and we can slide this up, and it updates. So that's working nice. So this is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like. And as always, happy developing.